and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Next Generation Web Mapping for Local Government. Before we begin today, the session will be 45 minutes or so, and we'll be sending out a recording afterwards. You can ask a question at any time throughout the webinar using the Q&A panel. And I'll answer as we go along, and time permitting, we'll have a Q&A session at the end as well. Also, be very grateful afterwards if you could complete our short survey, which will be sent by email afterwards. This will help us with future webinars. And finally, you are in listen-only mode, so we can't hear you. Just to introduce us today, my name is Damalza Potter. I work in the business development team here at Cadcorp, and I predominantly work with local and central government customers, helping them to make the most from their GIS investment. My co-presenter is Simon today. Over to you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Damalza. Good morning, everybody. My name's Simon Parker. I'm pre-sales team leader at Cadcorp, and this morning I'll be demonstrating sort of several examples of how the sort of next generation of web mapping can help local authorities meet your service needs.
Thanks, Simon. And we're just going to turn our webcams off for best possible performance for the presentation today. Okay, let's get started on today's agenda. I can see from those of you who've joined us today, we've got a mix of existing Cadcorp customers and new to Cadcorp people on the line. So I'll start with a bit about Cadcorp and what we do, and then introduce WebMap 9 and talk about it being next generation web mapping. I'll then pass over to Simon for the majority of the time today, and he's going to demonstrate a number of examples. Then it'll be back to myself to talk about some current customer use cases. I'll talk a little bit about deployment, whether in the cloud or local, and finally I'll round up and take remaining questions at the end. But just before we do get started, for those of you who have joined us before, we like to run a poll and find out a bit about you guys that are on the line today and your organisation. So I'm just going to launch a poll which asks you, does your organisation use web mapping currently? Yes, no, unsure. Please, if you could just check the boxes there and hit submit, and I'll talk about the results in a second. We've got two polls, so I'll just give you a few seconds to fill in that one. Thank you, and I'll close that one. And the second one, if I launch, how does your organisation deploy web mapping? For those of you who do have it, is it internally or externally, or both internally and externally? And again, if you could check the appropriate box, that we'd be grateful. And again, I'll just give you a few seconds just to complete that and submit. Okay, thank you. Okay, so as expected, the majority of you on the line today already have web mapping of some sort, so that's over 90%. However, only just over 50% of you deploy both internally and externally. That's interesting, so I'll come back to that a little bit later and talk about deployment sort of across your organisation and publicly as well. Okay, to get started, a bit about Cadcorp for those of you that are new to us. We're UK-based and focus on GIS software, data and services. We develop an integrated family of geospatial software and provide associated services and support to our customers. We have over 30 years experience in the industry and mainly work with these sectors in green, in green with a growing list of over 120 local government customers. A bit about our software, Cadcorp SIS or Spatial Information System. So it's our suite of GIS products covering web, mobile and desktop applications. All products can be deployed in the cloud or installed locally. And the key strengths and reasons why organisations choose Cadcorp Firstly, and most importantly, is the data format support that our software provides. So over 300 different formats, databases, web services, which is crucial for system interoperability within your organizations. Building on this format support, we work with all Ordnance Survey GB data, all of those formats, so that you can gain the benefits of that data as soon as possible. And you'll see this being used in Simon's demo later. If needed, APIs are available for integration and customization, and also much functionality is included. So of these hexagons on the left here, we're going to talk about one of them specifically today, web. And WebMap 9.1. So WebMap is a very user-friendly browser-based GIS. Why 9.1? It was released a few weeks ago, so it's really new for us, and we're really excited to talk to you about this today and show you a little bit more. Why next generation web mapping? Well, as I said, it's a brand new hot off-the-shelf version. We have regular service releases, but this is a major release with new technology and architecture, which has allowed new and improved functionality to be built. The interface has been redesigned, but it remains familiar for existing users and also the general public. It's one product with the same interface for internal and external maps. So coming back to the poll earlier, some of you who perhaps don't publish maps internally and externally could do that with WebMap if you wanted to. It's built to be intuitive, browser independent, and it has a matching mobile responsive interface, as you can see on screen. Exactly the same clean interface. And we should also not forget the embedded map functionality, which is available as standard with web mapping too. So that's for an unlimited use across your websites. In terms of next generation web mapping functionality, new and improved functionality, I've put on screen as much as I sensibly could here. Just pick out a couple of my favorite bits, if you like. My favorite new bit of functionality is single click data capture. It's really quick and simple. And my favorite bit of improved functionality is probably publishing up to A0 in terms of PDF. So watch out for those in Simon's demonstration. So Simon's coming next, and he's going to show you as much of that functionality as he can in the different interfaces as we have time for today. He's going to start with how a member of public could use WebMap, and then on to you how staff perhaps would use WebMap in various different examples and workflows, including within Power BI. Across to you, Simon.
Thank you, Tamara. Good morning to you all again. So I'll just share my screen and then make a start my demonstration. Okay, so yeah, what does the next generation of web mapping look like? So for the next sort of 25 minutes or so, I'm going to show you some examples of how web mapping can be used to help local authorities meet your service needs. Now, as sort of Demelza mentioned, one of the significant benefits of the next generation of web mapping is that this single solution, which has got a really simple to use interface, can be deployed to both members of the public and as an intranet mapping interface for your colleagues to access your mapping information. So I'm going to start off my demonstration this morning by showing you how you might use the next generation of web mapping for public access. Then we'll delve deeper into some of the new advanced capabilities that web mapping can now offer, and just show you how they might be used internally by your colleagues. So this is a new modern interface for web mapping. So yes, continue to be designed to be sort of intuitive and simple to use, and doesn't require any formal training. And as sort of Google Map users, you intuitively use your mouse to zoom and pan around the map to a location of interest. But for those who can't navigate a map in this way, they can search for a location here. Now this search can be configured to look up addresses, and there are many options available here, whether it's searching your gazetteer data, which might be in a database like Oracle or SQL Server, or you may have access to gazetteer web services. That could be the iDoc Symphony search, or maybe the Aligned Asset Single Point Service. Alternatively, with your PSJ membership, you can connect to the OS Names and OS Places API for searching as well. So as an example, if I just perform a postcode search based on my criteria, here I'm searching a number of different aspects of the OS Names API. And against my postcode search here, I can see sort of best match at the top and then some fuzzy matches underneath. But it doesn't just have to be addresses. Any spatial data which has got a unique reference, like a planning application, TPO, maybe a polling station, whatever it might be, you can configure this search to find them. So perhaps as an alternative example, I'm going to use the search to find a planning application that I'm interested in. And based on my criteria here, that planning reference I've searched for, against my planning application search here, I can see a match, I can select that result, and then the map takes me to that location. So now I'm in the location where I want to be. In the top right-hand corner of the interface, I can access the different mapping layers that are available to view in this map. And these mapping layers will be displayed over the Ordnance Survey mapping, which we can see currently on screen. And here I'm connecting to the OS Maps API to provide the data directly into the application. Now I search for planning application, so let's turn on the planning application layer here. So yeah, just showing these as red boundaries. And if I click on that location where that planning application search took me, on the left-hand side, I can see it's found 6 planning applications where I clicked on the map, and I've got some sort of basic sort of summary details here for the application, and I can use this toggle to go through each of those records that it's found on that click. Then right at the end, I can see the reference that I searched for, and included within this kind of view here, I've also got a hyperlink. So I can hit this hyperlink, and this could take me to my plan access or planning system on my website, open up that system at that particular application, and I can access some additional details if I want to explore this application further. Another use case for web mapping on your website, again, we've had sort of the recent cold and snowy weather. Perhaps you want to see which gritting routes or which roads will be gritted near us. Again, I could use this map to simply turn on these gritted routes and just see if my local roads will be gritted. So I think everything I've shown you so far, we can say, yep, it's very intuitive to locate a particular area of interest on the map and maybe view some data. But to make it even easier for a resident who perhaps might be visiting our website to view this service information, we can point them in the direction of local knowledge. Now, in the top left-hand corner of the interface, this is where we can access a lot of functionality that web mapping has to offer. But for this public-facing map, I've kept it really simple. And from this menu, I've just provided access to local knowledge. So if I was a resident, I could go to a location of interest or my property, run local knowledge, and then just like magic, a package of information is presented to me alongside the map. Basically, in the background, we're just taking the current location of the map and then performing a variety of different queries on your key business data sets. And these questions could be asking, what area am I in? Find the nearest 5 things to me, maybe what is near me within 500 meters. So it could be used to provide really quick answers to those most asked questions to a local authority. So in the examples I've got set up on the left-hand side, here at this location, what ward am I in? So I can see I'm in the city ward. I've even got a link here where I can go again, access further information on our local authority website. Underneath, always forgetting which bin is due out for collection the next day. Here is just informing me which bins are due for collection and when. Underneath, a find my nearest type search. So where are the nearest 3 bus stops to this location? And I can show those locations there on the map. But it could also be, tell me where my nearest 2 recycling centres are. Underneath, just a different way of using Find My Nearest. Rather than tell me the nearest 5 items, tell me everything within a particular radius. So here, list all the listed buildings within 50 meters of this location. And then right at the bottom, I'll get a point in polygon type test. Am I in a conservation area? Yes or no. So these are just sort of a couple of example questions local knowledge can help answer and hopefully promote sort of self-service amongst the members of public. But the way WebMap is deployed as a solution, it does provide the flexibility for you to publish as many maps as you like, but you can also deploy local knowledge for different purposes as well. So I've published a second sort of public access map, but this one is just focusing on my local plan. And I've configured this map slightly differently to the previous example, where when the map is launched, local knowledge displays on startup. And this time, this local knowledge is telling me the planning policies that apply to the center of the map. Now, if I navigate to another location of interest, perhaps if I just zoom into sort of the red car area, run a search, what I get here is a list of again, a different list of policies that apply to this particular area. So if I was a resident or maybe a developer about to submit a planning application, this type of self-service might be really useful to see what I need to consider or address when I submit a planning application. And if I just zoom out on the map, just to the extent of this boundary here, again, in the top right-hand corner, I can still access all of these different policy layers. Right at the bottom, I can toggle them all on at the same time. And as you might already be aware, these local plan maps can be quite challenged. They're very busy, got lots of policies. They all require different unique style. However, with local knowledge, this might be a really good way to make life easier for your website visitor to find what policies are in place for an area of interest. Now, before we look at the internal use of WebMap, I just want to finish off this sort of public access section by just sharing some of the integration options with you quickly. So this is actually a web page. You know, it's a very boring web page, but it is a web page. So we can use our imagination here. This could be a page on your website, and on this page, you can embed this search capability. So as a visitor to your website, they can search for an address. So let's type in a search. And then underneath, I'm presented with a list of addresses based on my search. Now, when I click on one of these results, you can actually design this so that WebMap opens at the location of the selected address. And just like the local plan map example, it's centered the map at that location, but it's also launched local knowledge. So this is a really effective sort of integration option where you can perhaps ask your resident to find an address, they select that address, and then the map automatically launches, takes them to that location, and provides them all the service information in a few number of clicks. And if I go back to that embedded search page again, now an alternative approach could be that a resident searches for an address, they select an address, but rather than go to WebMap, in the background, local knowledge can still do its thing, but the information from local knowledge could be displayed as text on this web page instead. And Demels will show an example of a customer doing exactly this a little bit later, but it's very clever stuff and just shows the flexibility of using these services in different ways. And then finally, you can also embed maps into your website as well, as Demelza mentioned earlier. And it just takes a couple of lines of code to achieve this. And a common use case is to show council-owned car parks on your website. But the benefit of the embedded map, it just gives your visitors quick access to a map to view the location of services. And it also helps you replace the use of Google and Bing Maps. And you can also utilize, obviously, the Ordnance Survey mapping through these embedded maps, which helps you keep that consistent approach to mapping within your organization. So those were just sort of a couple of examples of how sort of the new modern web mapping solution can help share service information to the public. So we've got a really simple, intuitive interface. We've got local knowledge for quick access to information. We can publish as many maps as you like, and you can use that to service or specific purposes. And then there are also many integration options as well, so you can get the most out of web mapping on your website. Okay, so let's now sort of focus on the use of the next generation of web mapping for internal use. And this is where web mapping is at the is using sort of the cutting edge technology to provide a host of new advanced features for your colleagues to take advantage of. And customers typically adopt a security model for web mapping when using internally. This means as administrators, you can manage what maps and data your colleagues can have access to, but also what functionality is available to them as well. So I'm going to actually log in to WebMap as a particular user. Now, when you log in, you can be directed to a map straight away, or you can have this kind of welcome or landing page. And this page provides a list of all of the different maps that me as that particular user has access to. So here I've got different maps for sort of different departments around my local authority. But right at the bottom, I want to access my development control map. So I'm going to hit view here to launch that particular map. Then from the main menu in the top left-hand corner, you can now see there is a long list of options available to me. So there's a lot more compared to that public access map that I showed you earlier, which only had local knowledge as an option. So let's explore some of these advanced capabilities. I'm going to zoom into York, and we're going to access the main menu again here and take a look at query. So query allows you to perform your own geographical searches on data. So for example, I want to pull out a list of planning applications for an area of interest. We can then decide how we want to search that data. We can draw an area on the map. We can select a feature. So maybe we can select a ward and we want to find all TPOs inside that ward. We can drop a pin on the map, maybe drop a point, add a 100-meter buffer, and I want to find all listed buildings within that 100-meter radius. Or I could maybe draw a line along a road, add a buffer of 5 meters, and say, let's find all TPOs along this road. So lots of flexibility in your searching. I'm going to draw an area of interest on the map. So I'm interested in finding applications within this particular area. And then once drawn, you have the option to add an additional buffer if you wish. Let me just show you what that looks like. So I'm going to add a buffer of 10 meters to my search area. And then when I hit run, it takes that search area that I've defined. It's going to query the planning application data, and then the results of which are presented in this table. So right at the bottom here, I can see that it's found 57 planning applications within that area of search. Now within this table view, we can also filter the data further. So we've got this little calculator here. So perhaps I'm interested in seeing those records where applications were simply approved. So I can say, let's select the decision column, and we want to find those applications that are marked as approved. So I can apply my criteria, apply the filter, and we can see of the 57 applications, 23 were approved. You can also remove that filter just to return all of the results. And then in the top right-hand corner here, you can also export that report out to a CSV as well. So we can download that and generate our report of all of those application records that we found within the area of search. And then we can use that outside of the web mapping application. And then if I just close this table view, you also get a temporary layer showing the results of that query as well. So if I just turn off the planning application layer and just scroll right to the bottom, we can see the layer here, planning application query, and on screen I can see just the polygons that were found in that area of search. And that might be quite useful because we want to perhaps generate a PDF map as well to show these polygon results. So from the main menu, we're going to go to publish. And on the right-hand side, within sort of this publish menu here, where we can generate our PDF maps, you now have the option to select a print template that you want to use. So this new web technology allows administrators to provide multiple print layouts for users to choose from. And that means you can have different designs for different teams. They can include your corporate branding, and it also supports up to A0 in size. So as an example, here I've got some print layouts designed for my development control colleagues, so they can select a template, use a mouse wheel to make it bigger or smaller on screen, or if they want a specific scale, you can set the scale on the right-hand side and the frame adjusts accordingly. Once we're happy with that position, we can click Next, and what we get here is a preview of that map inside that selected print template. Also, for every print template, you can have different prompts as well on the right-hand side, so you can add extra text onto your print. So as an example here, I've got a prompt here where I can add a title to my print. Here, maybe I'm required to type in my initials as a person creating the plan. Maybe I have to give a particular reference. And then when I hit update, those values are then included onto my print template. Now, once I'm happy, I can then create and download that map to a PDF file. So let's open up that PDF map. Now, the benefit of creating a PDF map, which is open on my second screen, so we'll just move that across. The benefit of that is that you can obviously share your PDF map electronically, you can store it electronically, but you can obviously print as well. And for this particular example, I've actually created this as an interactive PDF map as well. So I can interact with the data layers in the map by turning them on and off within Adobe PDF file here. So I basically created my own interactive map as a PDF file. So let's return back to the map. So yeah, lots of capabilities there, and with the new sort of modern web mapping, being able to print array zero, select your own custom templates, and then generating an interactive PDF map. So let's just go back to my layer control. I'm just going to turn off my planning application layer and just turn on an overlay showing listed buildings. Now, another sort of significant development of web mapping is my data, which comes with a lot of new advanced features that your colleagues can now take advantage of. And you would probably associate some of these new features with desktop GIS software, but they are now included in web mapping, which means more people can benefit from these types of tools. And that includes allowing users to be able to style their own data. Everyone has their own preferences, and with the add theme option, they can now style some of the data layers how they like. Now, on the map at the moment, we've got these red circles showing all of my listed buildings. They're all colored the same, but I want to style the data slightly differently based on their grade status. So we're going to select the listed building layer in this wizard. We've got a number of different options to choose from. We can even add labels. I'm going to choose in the next step the column which I want to color by. So these are the status of these listed buildings. We'll get all the unique values. It'll automatically give you a default color for each value, but I can select them in turn and choose a different color using a color palette if I wish. But if I now complete the wizard, very quickly, I've now styled the data with my own user-defined style. Here on the left-hand side, we can see those colors for the different grade status of the listed buildings. So a really nice feature there, allowing users to, if they have the requirement to style the data. Now, with these listed buildings that we see on the map currently, I can also view the attribute information behind them as well. Again, a staple feature of desktop GIS, but now available in web mapping. So let's access the table window. For my listed building data layer, we'll get the values, and what is presenting to me here is 154 listed building records that fall within my current map extent. Now, the structure of this table is exactly the same as the query that I showed you earlier. You can use this calculator here to filter the contents of the table. If I was interested in consort house here particularly, I can go to the end of the record, hit view feature here. The map will pan to that, and here I'm highlighting that record with a red circle there. And you've also got the option in this table view to export the data out to CSV as well. So a really useful feature there to allow users to be able to view and download the information behind the features on the map. And taking these export options one step further, you can also have the functionality to export data to a GIS mapping file as well. Now, I'll just very briefly mention that I've not focused on the drawing tools today, but under the main menu in the top left-hand corner, we do have drawing tools. And this is where users can kind of draw and annotate the map. These drawings can also be exported to a GIS mapping file. So that might be helpful for some users who perhaps want to do a markup on the map, then supply someone with that data and in a format of a GIS file. Alternatively, you can export any of the mapping layers which have been made available for export. Again, handy if you need to grab an extract to either display in another system or provide to a third party. And you've got options underneath to choose whether you want to export features in the current map view or the entire data layer. And the data will be exported to a GeoJSON file, which is an open data format supported by most software that can read mapping data. And then just to sort of finish off this sort of the My Data section here. Now, for those of you who do have access to desktop GIS, and you might get frequent requests from colleagues to load in some new data in your GIS and maybe create a PDF map for them, you'll be glad to hear that these colleagues can do that themselves in WebMap. So this might be ad hoc data they've downloaded from open data sources or perhaps provided by third-party agencies. It could be, you can even set up a folder on your network of additional data layers. So maybe these are data layers you don't want to have available on the map initially, but you can have like a repository of data that users can add on an ad hoc basis when they need to. So here we can select the GeoJSON mapping file that we want to load into the map. So here I'm going to open a layer with local authority ownership. Again, we've got a color palette here, so we can choose how we want to style that data. We'll give the data a name, so I'll call it ownership, and then when I hit load, it's grab that GeoJSON mapping file, and it's now displayed over the Ordnance Survey mapping. Then if the user wishes to, they could then perhaps create a PDF map like I showed you earlier. So again, a really nice new addition to web mapping, allowing users to add additional data to the map. And that sort of concludes my overview here of sort of the My Data capabilities here. So some really great additions to web mapping that gives your user base more tools to work with. Now, with all of this additional capability in web mapping, it's no surprise that we are hearing customers, we hear customers are sort of migrating desktop GIS users to the web mapping environment. And for some, this is how savings in desktop licenses are being used to invest in web mapping. And one of those sort of key areas that supports this trend is the availability of data management tools in web mapping. Now, editing within a web map is a license add-in, and it provides tools to capture and edit mapping data. And with security, you can control who has access to these tools. So let's take a quick look at editing, but how about we look at it on a mobile device? So I'm just now going to grab my mobile, and we'll just mirror my mobile to my screen. And I'm now going to access WebMap on a mobile device. So there's no special app to download. It's accessible via a browser on your device. You could even use it outside the office as long as you've got that data connectivity. And you get a similar looking interface in the mobile view. You can obviously, like you would with Google Maps, you can swipe the screen to pan or use the pinch technique to zoom around the map. Top right hand corner with the magnifying glass icon there, you can use the search as well, which I showed you earlier, to find a postcode or an application. Or in the bottom right hand corner, we've got this My Location button. So this is this blue circle with what looks like a compass. And by selecting that, it will take you to your current map location using the GPS coordinates of your device. Then in the top left hand corner, I can access the main menu. And for this particular map, all I've made available are the editing tools. So you could take your mobile or tablet device out in the field and use this to capture or validate your mapping data. Now, in the editing dialog at the bottom here, we've got these two tabs. So the one that's colored in at the moment is called Create, and this allows you to draw and edit your mapping data. So for example, perhaps I want to add a building footprint to one of my business layers. So I'm going to select the layer, and then I'm going to start to tap on the screen to capture my building footprint. You can see I'm not catching the corners quite correctly, but we've got a nice little fix for that, which I'll show you very shortly. Then once I've finished capturing my footprint, I can double tap and a form appears. This is where I can record my attribute data. So I can add some data to the feature I'm capturing, let's call it a residential property. And then when I hit create, obviously I caught a bit too close to that other line there, we can then snap to the underlying data underneath. Then under the advanced tab, we've also got additional advanced capabilities where you can copy features between different mapping layers. You can combine features, so that's like merging data together. Or we also have this new single-click data capture tool, which Demelza sort of touched upon earlier. So I've enabled this against my mapping base map here, my master map. And what I want to do is grab a building footprint and copy that into one of my business layers. So I can choose the layer that I want to copy into. I'm going to tap inside the building there, number 2 there, at the top. It then launches my form again, so I can populate what the attributes that I need to capture for this new feature. And then when I hit create, it grabs that polygon and then copies it into my business layer. So really powerful sort of data management tools there for creating and editing your mapping data. So let's just stop mirroring my phone and just return back to my desktop view. So yeah, I hope you agree with some of the examples I've shown you for using WebMap for internet mapping. The next generation of web mapping provides lots of advanced capabilities, functionality you would sort of typically associate with desktop, but now available in web mapping, which means your colleagues can do a lot more with web mapping. And by showing you all these different examples, you can see that this single sort of web mapping solution has the flexibility to be deployed for different purposes, whether it's the maps, the data, or the functionality that you offer to the end user. Now, just to finish off my demonstration, I did show you some integration options earlier for your website. Another integration option which you might use internally and has become very popular is the integration with Microsoft Power BI. Now, yeah, we're finding Power BI is becoming very popular within local authorities for business intelligence reporting. And to complement this type of reporting, you can include embedded map within your reports. And this just gives you the opportunity to display your data on the map and identify patterns you wouldn't necessarily see if you're just looking at rows and rows of data in a spreadsheet or a database. Now, the embedded map does support points, lines, and polygon data. This example is a point data set showing incidents of fly tipping. If I hover over one of these incidents, I can see some additional information about this fly tipping report. The background map itself is Ordnance Survey data. In fact, I'm using data directly from the OS Maps API. And to complement the points on the map, I'm also feeding through some read-only data layers, which can provide some additional context to my data. Then on the left-hand side, we've got a variety of different Power BI visuals. I can use this to drill down on the data. So I want to look at fly tipping incidents within the Clifton ward, where black bags were illegally dumped. We can then see the 53 reports on the map, and we can see we've got two distinct areas here where these incidents are occurring. So really useful insight to help us target these areas specifically with perhaps mitigation measures. So that's just another example there of reaping the rewards of a web mapping solution, another integration option that can increase the use of mapping data in your organization. And so, yes, that brings an end to my demonstration this morning. So I showed you lots and lots of capabilities, lots of different examples using the next generation of web mapping in local government, hopefully serving both the needs of your residents and also providing those mapping tools for your colleagues to engage with mapping data in a simple to use interface. So thank you for watching. I'm now going to hand you back to Demelza. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simon. I'm just going to publish some questions that Simon can take a look at before we carry on. And I'll just round up today. So I'm just going to follow on Simon by talking about some existing customer use cases from existing customers, county, city, districts, so you can see in practice how it's currently being used. So firstly, I've stolen a couple of slides from one of our customers, Staffordshire County Council, who recently presented at one of our local government conferences. And here you will see various examples of sharing their vast store of data for specific purposes on their public website. We move to their internal web map. They've got over 25 maps. And these are restricted based on each user's credentials. These are very much the traditional uses of WebMap. We do also have customers using extranet instances for contractors or services to parish councils as well. Now, Derby City Council, a very different example. Here's a map showing their hot desks and lockers and where they are. Definitely not your traditional use, but obviously useful for staff and their facilities management department. Embedded maps. Now, Simon mentioned embedded maps for car park locations as an example. Here's a real life example from Arran District Council, just a very simple interface to display this information. Again, Bury do something similar, but this time with their gritting routes and bins. And back at the beginning, I mentioned customization, and here's an example from Bridgend where we've got English and Welsh language side by side. Here you can see the local knowledge text comparison, but all text and branding can be amended across WebMap, which is really useful if you've got language requirements or even just specific terminology you would prefer to use. Again, sticking with local knowledge, Simon mentioned it's a web service, and here at St Albans, they've integrated the local knowledge results with their digital platform, My St Albans, and you've got no idea that Cadcorp technology is involved in the background, but it's providing that location information to the user. So hopefully you can see how flexible WebMap really is. Okay, one slide on deployment, cloud versus local. So all Cadcorp software can be cloud hosted and managed by Cadcorp or installed locally. And we provide a number of complementary data and support services to go with it. There are many benefits to hosting, which I've discussed lots in previous cloud-focused webinars, so I'm not going to talk about these today. But if you do wish to discuss with myself and colleagues, please put a note in the questions panel. And just a reminder that questions panel's available if anyone else wants to use the remaining time to ask questions today. So my colleagues are available for technical advice based on their experience of cloud deployment if your organisation needs it. If you're already a Cadcorp customer, there's a migration path from local to hosted, and you can talk to your account manager about this. And for information, there are direct or G-Cloud 13 options for procurement. Okay, just to round up today with some key takeaways. WebMap 9.1 is really simple to use, and it's a flexible solution providing next generation web mapping. It delivers new and improved functionality that provides your departments, your residents, more independent access to information. WebMap, yes, can of course query and display data in a map, but what we wanted to show you today is how one product meets multiple requirements for map and location-based data, because it's not always all about a map. It's being extensively used by existing customers, can be deployed in the cloud or locally. And finally, it's really important to say that Cadcorp are really committed to product development in line with our user-based requirements. So that is you guys on the line today, UK local government colleagues. Okay, I'm just going to put the cameras back on. We've had some questions. I think Simon's probably been answering some questions as we've been going through. So I'll start to pick up on some of those that haven't. Sam, can the interface be branded to match our corporate website? So yes, you may have seen on some previous slides some use cases with different color banners and logos. Those can be changed to match your corporate websites, and also watermarks and things on PDFs that can all be set up by the administrator. So do you have more information on Power BI integration? Yep, we will send you a bit more information directly on that. Rebecca, Simon showed searching for location using postal addresses. Can you use what 3 words locations? Yes, so we have an add-in for what 3 words location, so you can either search for the location or find the location that you actually click at. So that's certainly available for use. I should probably also mention we have other add-ins that are useful within local government settings. That includes incident reportings, planning constraints, type reports. If you'd like a demo on any of those, please again just request it in the questions panel, and we'll arrange for you to see those specific bits of functionality that we've really not had time to cover today. Okay, I'm aware we're close to our 45-minute session today, so I'll bring everything to a close. I'm aware there's a few questions that we haven't directly answered, so either myself or my colleagues will get back to you shortly answering those for you. And finally, we'd really appreciate if you could take the time to complete the short feedback survey that we will email you after today. This will help us deliver these relevant webinars, hopefully for you in future. Thank you for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you at relevant future webinars. Thank you.